Hi there, folks. Welcome back. We all know California resembles the CCP a lot more than it does America, right? Certainly more than the American Constitution. But it could be even more far along than we thought when it comes to mimicking the Chinese Communist Party. California's out of control. Back during the pandemic, California attempted to restrict churches from holding worship services. You probably remember this. They were giving places, though, like strip clubs permission to continue operating as normal, Hollywood too. And now, of course, none of this made sense to anybody, but this is California we're talking about. This made its way all the way to the Supreme Court. The court ended up telling California they could not enforce their ban on indoor church services, but even then, some in the state continued to target churches, such as Cavalry Church up north in San Jose area. Local government officials hired an expert to literally track who was going to church there and therefore who was floating their COVID guidelines. They're tracking the parishioners, okay? That is something you would see straight out of the CCP's playbook. Well, with me now to give me details of all of this is the attorney assisting Cavalry Church. Mariah Gondeiro is with us. Mariah, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mariah, first off, the county was using cell phone tracking data, much like they did in the 2000 Mules movie, anyone who saw that, to track parishioners here? How did you find this out?
Yes, they did. We found this out through discovery. So Santa Clara County bought data from companies like SafeGraph and then also paid an expert to analyze and determine how many people were coming in and out of the church. And not only how many people, but to figure out who was going into the church and who was sick. So that who was supposedly sick with COVID-19. So that is what is very alarming here. They were able to gather private information of specific individuals who were in church.
Can you figure out, I know how they could track the individuals, right? We all saw 2000 Mules using this geolocating data, the individual number on your phone, not your phone number. And they say here that we didn't identify the individuals. But my fear is using that tracking data, law enforcement could certainly go in and subpoena the data and identify the individuals. So maybe the expert can't, but the cops could if they're weaponized against who? Conservatives going to church, Mariah.
Yes, absolutely. They can get that private data. And that's something that we're going to try to uncover in the future during depositions is to try to figure out, how do you know specifically the individuals that are going to church, not just the number of people that are going in and out of the church, but how do you know that people were sick and going to church? And my assumption is that they probably gathered this information from the state, because during COVID-19, individuals had to provide their personal information to report COVID-19 cases whenever they got sick. So my assumption is that they were able to gather this information through that as well.
Let me read to you what we pulled out of the report. This is the expert in the county report, and he writes here, quote, I'm going to quote it. Let's put it up. In sum, the analysis of rich mobility data relied upon extensively across public health departments shows that the visit patterns to Calvary Chapel were extreme and higher than other religious institutions in the county. Given available knowledge about the spread of COVID-19 in indoor spaces with unmasked activity, there were strong reasons to believe that Calvary posed an unusual high risk. But Mariah, when I go through this report, I almost had to giggle. Because what they seem so concerned over, so flabbergasted over, is that pre-COVID, they used the same data and said the average attendance at church daily attendance highs was 670 people a day, and during COVID was 1,700 a day. So it basically triples. Why does it triple? A lot of churches are closed down. They probably found the one church where they could worship and get close to God, and the county is outraged that more and more people are worshiping. That's what I think is at play here, Mariah.
Yes, absolutely. Ultimately, this case has just turned out to be the county wanting to save face. This is just a very vindictive lawsuit at this point, because the Supreme Court has already spoken, and they are just desperate to find something to support their theory that this church was a super spreader event, because they don't have the law on their side. So they're trying to show how dangerous the church is. And I actually giggled when I saw this report too, because in fact, it's actually a good thing that so many people were going to the church and were able to do worship. And in fact, that's the reason why Pastor Mike kept his door open, is because so many people were so depressed during COVID-19. They needed a place to go and find refuge and to just be with people and to worship and to smile and to congregate and to hug each other.
You know, I went back to the Supreme Court ruling. I guess it was back in February. And they basically called out California. I think the quote was, a Hollywood studio can remain open, but this is a quote, not a single soul can go to a church or a synagogue while Hollywood is filming movies. Like, that's what California is up against. And you used a word here that really concerns me. Vindictive. It seems to me that after the Supreme Court ruling, we now know that COVID wasn't the danger that they said it was. Vindictive seems to be what this is all about. That's not what a government is supposed to be towards its people.
No, and it is absolutely, it's really sad. This county has levied more fines against entities and businesses than any other counties, and a lot of businesses had to pay those fines. So I believe that they're doing this because they feel like they need to hold Calvary Chapel San Jose accountable, because the church flouted the orders. They know that if Calvary gets away scotch-free, there is going to be a lot of political ramifications. So that's what this is about. And also, too, I think these county health officers, they were the ones that initiated the first shelter-in-place order. So I think there's a lot of ego at play. They want to be able to tell the public what we did was right. We were right, but they were wrong. They had no justification to treat churches harsher. And in fact, the county can't even trace one COVID-19 case to this church.
You know, when I think and I look at this report, they literally had a geofence line around the church to think that they're tracking Californians, American citizens, tracking their movements going in and out of church. What happens when they track our movements going to a Trump rally? What happens when they track our movement going to a local gun store? Is this what we're up against in California and probably beyond? Because what happens in California never stays in California. They march that on down the road. So I guess the last question for you, Mariah, is what's the ultimate goal for you all out of here? Is it literally just to defend the church and not have them have to pay fines? Or is it to get the government to stop this behavior altogether?
Well, Mike's goal has ultimately been to defend the First Amendment. We want to hold this county accountable so that this never happens again. We've represented a lot of different churches and Christians throughout COVID-19. I have never experienced a county treat a church in this way. It is absolutely despicable. And so for Pastor Mike, he wants to take a stand so that no other church, no other Christian has to go through this type of surveillance, this type of discrimination. It's just wrong. And so I believe in the end, we are going to prevail.
Well, I appreciate you putting up a fight for them. They deserve it. And please give everyone in that congregation our best. Keep us informed on how this progresses. This is an important case, and I think it goes far beyond just Calvary Chapel here. I think this is a bigger case than that. It's what the government is up to, and they got busted here, thanks to you. Mariah, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Talk again soon. Boy, when you think about California tracking Californians, I guess it's not surprising, but it should be. That's not what a government is meant to be. A government's supposed to be by and for the people. This is literally tyrannical behavior. All right, coming up after the break, Republicans continually say that they will not touch Medicaid or Social Security, but everyone knows that something has to be done about those programs. Or do they? Politicians